That way we got up here.
That's a lot of profit.
It's weird.
You got more snow left down here with him. We got
Is that
left
what
up
it is?
here. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah.
They wanted, the service authority wanted to run a gas line through the property.
Yeah, we had down, we said inches or something.
Right away. to do
Yeah, maybe so. I measured,
It it was a farm.
I think the
and
most
then
I measured
29
was
split
6.
it, and
5
some
to
other
6.
roads split it. and
Yeah, 'cause the wind wasn't blowing and it looked like it wasn't warm at home when I left.
The kids now,
I don't know. That,
grandkids,
got rid of it
great-grandkids,
quick or
and
what?
great-grandkids, all
Well,
have
it was
different ownerships. We set
Yesterday, or
corporations.
Tuesday,
So you could pass ownership
Tuesday, I
amongst
guess it was melting about half as fast as it comes down, so
yeah,
what a mess.
I'm over it.
Wait till next week.
Yeah, I know this. Yeah, next Wednesday.
So it'll be real soon.
Okay, what's going on?
But listen to those Canadian
And
states.
it's your rain this
I haven't been
weekend,
here, I hadn't heard that.
Saturday to Sunday. We will. So,
That's such a great idea.
yeah.
With my wife.
Troy, how you doing?
Good, sir.
See you.
Mr. Payne.
Four-wheel drive.
Good, good.
Brown outfit,
It's on, but
it's where they pulled out, rises up about 2 feet. I went out there the other night down and put a wheel on the end. Each end piece up. And that thing wanted to dig a hole instead of go up at the ground. Then the one side, the left wheel went up on the hump where the hay and I passed, the right wheel was a little bit cocked to the side. And I got a 900-pound bale up in the air. So I looked up
hear
and
us
all that.
at all?
It is one
Yeah, I'm ready for spring. Yeah. Hey, Alex.
How you doing, Alice? I am doing good for it, I know.
Find his phone here.
Yeah. Split 3 ways.
Split three ways.
That's feeling good, Alex.
We can't hear you, but it sounds like you might be able to hear us. We're going to get someone from IT to come down and see if we can sort this out before the meeting.
Oh, come on, Tom, you good? Good evening.
I'm trying to see before Scott gets here if I can do it. IT Tom Jr.
So basically,
I done had cat born yesterday and all that.
there's
Oh,
a
no.
And then Jane saw it, I went to check for it to the office.
You didn't get a picture of me.
And Jane's coming by. She's a great farm manager. You know,
She
you got-
stays on it.
You know you got a new cab. No, I can't have a cab.
to that transfer station there.
He's up there, he's about to freeze to death.
They need a
Went up
permit.
there and pulled his little shit and kind of.
Well, no, that's not right.
You got it, you got it.
They need a,
And,
Your mama with you?
yeah, she's doing good, Mom. I got good.
the land,
I have pets.
George, I might have heard you for a second.
they want to redo the CUP
Put a rope around his neck and
to
hold him up.
accommodate this and
By the
everything.
tail, coach him on to the bone.
It involves them bringing in trucks. It involves
So
a
Mary
process.
Mann's,
In the
they,
process,
Jane didn't want to come in the field, she thought she'd start.
county
Mary's got,
it says 60 feet.
well, just pick him up.
But they,
You ain't been around with my back.
they're gonna build a building. They'll cut that down. They'll do everything inside the
So
enclosure.
I picked the
And
kid,
that'll cut it down by about half.
told him,
That'll be fun.
just so we're.
What is happening now is they're gonna put it in a different part of the,
Russ, because I see him kind of respond when I'm talking, but I cannot hear any audio from him. No.
Tom will bring you up to speed on it.
Just a minute, all right.
She knew where it was at. But then the fool would go over, he'd go back to the old same as
George,
I said, you idiot, just say.
George is not coming?
The procedure last week.
Yeah, still recovering
Went
from
down there
surgery.
and decided
Okay.
that I would
Okay.
give him some milk, clean up some milk.
Figure it out.
I was pretty sure he had dosed. 'Cause he was up
How are you doing?
when I first.
Doing well,
Anyway,
hope you are.
I couldn't stop.
Upcoming outages or?
I would left.
Yeah, at least one.
North End should be starting soon.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I said, well, you probably do a better job, so I do roll
Conversation
around
about that
behind
today.
and shut
and
it
I put this
I'm pretty
in
sure
here so it won't stick to that pen. This is where I need
this will be the
down. Check this
see.
morning.
maiden voyage, if you will. I don't foresee it being a problem, but we did some testing last week, Friday. And so I want to make sure that
George, can you speak again for us?
which I anticipate, yes.
Get up the volume.
But you know, say, yeah, definitely doing this and then.
I think we got you, but try talking again.
Yeah, it was laying on, I got a stall in front of the stall where the milk goes through. Between the stall and the
Hear us?
So this is, this one, if I'm not correct, is pretty entailed.
George.
if he comes out,
Oh, I don't even keep up with what they're doing. I don't know. I know
George, can you hear
roughly when
us?
they're happening, and that's all my interest
Right,
is.
right. What's this
All
happening?
all that stuff is behind me.
Okay,
When you say Houston, you think about
He's in a hammer.
condenser,
replacement.
turbine condenser?
Let's see, what
We were
was
looking
set
at
up?
that at one point.
Yes,
So I guess he'll join us, I guess, when you see it here.
I think it's this one.
Okay, I'll track that down. I think we got him. Scott, thanks for your help. Yeah, I really appreciate it.
Okay, our end of it, which is reactor,
Brian, my coach was like, pick him up.
shortly will be extended a little bit. But most of it's gonna be turbine
That's all
side.
right.
I mean, that's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, so work tomorrow morning, she'll be seeing
Whether
the
it's
earls
either
of her
that
way.
or one of the others.
Understand, good.
Believe George can speak and hear us. I think he might just have it somewhere else at the moment, but if he joins us, I'll crank down the volume as necessary.
I am certain George can speak. It's just a matter of whether we can hear him. Very good. All right. I'd like to call to order the February meeting of Louisa County Planning Commission work session. We're going to go a little out of order tonight because we'd like to hear from Chris Kuhn on item 1. He's not available quite yet. So can we start with gateways, item 2?
Okay, I'll start over here. Hi, good evening. We're going to try something a little bit different tonight as far as casting this information, so hopefully this works well on the screen here. I did send some information prior to the meeting as far as the gateway signs themselves. Thank you. But we can quickly review the PowerPoint that was given at the Board of Supervisors meeting on January 21st, just so you have a good idea of what we're talking about, and then we'll dive down into these locations. Okay, so what we discussed at the Board of Supervisors meeting recently, which is where we are in this project. We did issue an RFP so we could get some pricing information because it was kind of a chicken and egg situation. Like we have to have somewhere to start to know what kind of pricing are we looking at, how does that work with the budget we've set aside for this. So we talked about our RFP process and then how we'll come to you, get some information, develop an implementation plan, which we'll talk about more here in a moment. So it's important as we look at all of these designs to just keep in mind these are not finalized. These aren't meant to be final designs that we're presenting to you. It was just to get pricing. So hopefully, the pricing won't change too dramatically from where we are now. But if it does, that's okay. We'll definitely adjust. So we have some gateway sign designs, and we also have what we're calling wayfinding and event signage as part of this presentation that we'll look at here momentarily. So the gateway signage, there is an idea, instead of just having a universal welcome to Louisa sign that we would have at our different entry points, that we would try to have something very distinct for each of the different districts. That way as you're coming in, you're seeing something unique to that area. Overall, the branding would have to be similar so it all feels cohesive. But you can see here there's a Lake Anna example. We can do something, fun with, a water bird or something like that. The pricing for what you're seeing here, ranges from, almost 3,000 for the more simple signs to over 8,000 for the ornate signage. And this is all with aluminum and painted pieces and vinyl graphics. The wayfinding and event signs that are going to be part of the implementation plan as we kind of develop this larger package of information. We're not anticipating doing that within the next year because really with our budget, given the recommendation that we have currently from the Tourism Advisory Committee, we're thinking let's focus on gateway signs. We'll come back and we'll do the wayfinding and event signs as a secondary piece in the second or third year. But the idea behind these is that there would be events and interchangeable panels, and this would be put up throughout the county. So, places that aren't necessarily entry points to the county, but are high traffic road segments where people stop or slow and can actually take time to get some information, we could put in signature events. So we could start with Parks and Rec events as the initial events that we put in for the year. But as we develop more signature events in other areas, we could obviously weave those in as well. We'll talk about this here momentarily. This was also in the information that I sent previously, but we've identified the top 20 most trafficked road segments in the county. The ones shown here, this was the top 10. Those are potential gateway areas that we can dive deeper into. This is the top 10 here. Again, the stars are the gateway points. So we are going to use tourism occupancy or transit occupancy funds as our source here to fund these signs. So given the money that we have in that fund, we're thinking we can afford 6 signs this first year. So that's what we kind of like to dive deeper into. There is a caveat that our current contract, like we talked about, the designs are not finalized. So again, pricing can change depending on what direction we all want to go. And if we want to add, roundabout signage, that's been a discussion point where if we want to put something in at Ware's Crossroad, we can do that. That can be added. And we can also talk about adding water tower branding as part of this larger signage package. That's further down the road, I believe, but definitely something to keep in mind. The other piece, too, to think about is with our pricing and our budget, landscaping isn't included, so we might want to think about other options for the landscaping piece. And then that just kind of gives you some general ideas as far as the sizing that our pricing is based on. So if we vary from this, too much, the pricing is going to change. So this is something to keep in mind. I know I did that very quickly, but I would like to dive into the location piece so I can pick your brains on that. So the most trafficked road segments we're looking at here. So this is between 64 and East Green Springs Road. So you can see the average daily traffic count, and this particular segment is about half a mile from the county line. So I don't know if there's any thoughts on placement based on your experience, if you want to kind of take a closer look on where we want to be here. My thought is to get it pretty close in this general area. And you have to bear with me since this is a little bit hard on the laptop.
Boy, that's
One moment.
a tough place right there coming off the interstate and trying to get up to it.
I don't think that view is gonna be too helpful.
You traffic in.
You identified. We said it 2 miles in.
It's not in the work session.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
I
So,
don't think we accomplished anything there.
did you see the email previously? Yeah. And in that email, it goes into the different locations, the top 20, and gives you somewhat of an idea, the map for the different road segments. So there are no, really strong opinions on where the sign might make the most sense in this road segment, or if you even like putting a sign in this road segment. Maybe we could talk about the potential, icon that would be associated with this. So this is the Green Springs district. I don't know if you like the idea of having different imagery for the different districts, and if so, if something comes to mind for Green Springs.
I'm not sure we've really had a discussion on the location yet. We're kind of waiting for you to get through what you were doing there on the screen to some
Okay, so
point.
this-
But I'd like to hear at least from Commissioner Dickerson on this, the thoughts. But I got a couple of thoughts myself, but I don't want to jump in.
It's kind of Green Springs and Patrick Henry, because the 15 becomes the line right
Absolutely,
there.
that's true. That's
So one
slap me
side's
in the
Green
head.
Springs,
I
and
keep-
the other side's
slap me in
Patrick
the head. I
Henry.
keep forgetting.
No, she mentioned it. She
Yeah.
mentioned it was Green Springs. Not Richmond, But
I'd like to hear from both of you then.
are we talking about for the sign placement map?
Yeah, we could dive into this.
Yeah.
So this purple line is the road segment. This blue line here is just to measure the distance from the county line and show you where that county line is. So if you see
Yeah.
this red line, it's very faint on this screen, but that's the county line here.
Have-
So, but this road segment is what VDOT has identified as the highest trafficked road segment in the county.
Mr. Chair, I understand that the traffic totals are higher there, but we're a good, I don't know, hundreds of feet away from the actual county line. And when you're going with the gateway concept, I would think that you're almost identifying the county line when you put a sign up that says, "Welcome to Louisa County."
So, if I may, it's interesting as you look at these because some of these areas that are identified are, and what we're even talking about putting gateway signage like the Wares Cross Road location in the roundabout, that's 4 miles from the county line. So I think it's something that we need to dive deeper into. I mean, what makes the most sense? Because, if you put a gateway sign in this other direction, does that make the most sense as far as the eyes on it? And also there's going to be VDOT signage that'll say entering Louisa County. So it's definitely a discussion we should have. Because some of these are easy and they line up right with the county line. Other ones like this, they're a little ways out. So this is half a mile away.
So if I may, Mr. Chair,
Certainly.
so when you're talking about Wares Crossroads as opposed to the bridge, the distance there, you're going to put a Louisa sign at Wares Crossroads, heading into Wares Crossroads. Welcome to Louisa.
So, jumping ahead into that conversation. So if we fly to that area, the most trafficked road segment does start on the county line. So nothing is preventing us from getting that welcome to Louisa sign closer to the county line. The Wares Crossroads roundabout it's been a source of, does it make sense, or should we put something in the roundabout because it is this, feature that we have now. But to your point, it's 4 miles. And even, another highly trafficked road segment is over here. This is Wares Crossroads to Spotsylvania. So basically where these come together, they're both about 4 miles out.
I'm a little bit, and I never can tell now that they moved all the districts around whether that's exactly in my district still or not. But I'm a little hesitant to put signage that you want people to read in the middle of a roundabout when they need to be paying attention to traffic, as opposed to looking at something inside the roundabout, which is a nice thing to look at, but not necessarily. I mean, it just concerns me a little bit if they either want to study that or traffic, or you put it up and you don't want people to look at it because you want to pay them traffic. Why are you putting it up there? So that one inside the roundabout maybe gives me a little pause. I don't know. I suppose if you're waiting in line, you can look ahead and look at it, but
It may be worth thinking about something that would be like complementary. So if we have something closer to the county line, that's the welcome to Louisa, but then inside the roundabout, if we do have like these,
Yeah.
whatever imagery that's kind of distinct to that area, maybe that goes in the center of the roundabout.
particularly in that roundabout, if it was something you wouldn't be reading, but you would be looking at an image instead, so you don't have to take the time to read something, you just see that. I don't know if I think that's the best use of money, though, to put something in there for that purpose. I'd about rather see, since these, 208 and 522, they're coming into the county, those are major arteries coming in. I'd rather see the signage at the county line for each one of them coming in and not worry about the roundabout so much there. If you figured it out that you come into county on each one of those roads, by the time you get to the crossroads, maybe you wouldn't have forgotten you're in Louisa County, and it doesn't matter to see it, I'd rather see them at the, for this, I'd rather see them at the county lines coming in. And two questions I had, I was thinking about when you were talking about the signs. I've been thinking about this. The first one is, what are we going to do about the property we put it on? Is the county going to take an easement on that property and own that property, or be responsible for that property that it sits on?
That's a great question. Multiple things have been discussed at this point. And because we don't have the locations identified, I think it's still part of the conversation.
Okay, so we don't know the answer to that yet.
Right.
The second question is, if we do landscaping around the side, signs, who's responsible for the landscaping maintenance?
We would be responsible. And particularly in the roundabout, going back to that conversation, just so you have a little bit more context, I don't know how much has been discussed here. But as of right now, anything that's done inside of that roundabout is VDOT's responsibility. If we put signage there, then we take over the responsibility to maintain that.
All right. Mr. Quarles?
Mr. Chair, just to follow up on what you just mentioned, especially in that Wares Crossroads intersection, the reason we're putting a roundabout there is because of the frequency of incidents. So now that we've entered this roundabout, now we're going to put another distraction up there to take people's eyes off of what they're doing. I think it's counterproductive.
Yeah,
Thank you.
was my thought, yeah.
Ditto that, both of those, the location of it in the right of way, out the right of way, the maintenance,
Right.
distraction and around the place is probably not a good thing.
Yeah.
Well, if I may, Mr. Chairman.
Yes,
I think it's a great idea. I think we're kind of, maybe just the verbiage maybe gets me a little bit out of sorts, but it's more of a monument sign than it is a gateway sign. And in the first one you were at Zions Crossroads, that area right there, and like you say, Mr. Quarles, it's not at the county line.
Right.
So to me, it's not a gateway signage. But I liked with your presentation in the beginning when you showed the different signage, like at the lake. It's the bird on the stork or whatever you've come up with there. I think it's a great idea. And the roundabout, we would hope has alleviated the traffic issues there, the accidents there. The speed is greatly reduced through that area now. And again, I think my biggest concern is who pays for this long term. We provide the signage, and it seems to me if you did that, and I kind of get this out of I travel extensively, and you go to some areas. I was just in a place recently, Asheville, North Carolina, and what they've done in their community is absolutely beautiful, and that's a great place to have a monument per se. But I think you'd have to have an organization in that case, like Lake Anna Civic, one of those associations that would maintain it, plant the grass, cut the grass, which again, that falls into the, in my mind, the volunteer kind of category, which can sometimes be troublesome to make all that work together. I think the cost on it, though, would be extreme to put in what I consider a nice monument signage per these areas. Zion's Crossroads, that area there, I think the water tower would serve a good, this is us type thing. So that's my view on that.
And that's a great point too. I mean, as far as the terminology, if we consider the more monument signs, and even if that, impacts the design too, maybe the text doesn't say welcome to Louisa. We still give that impression of welcome to Louisa, but then maybe it doesn't become as important if it's half a mile or a mile from the county line.
That would alleviate that.
It would.
Which I agree with Mr. Quarles, that to me is an issue. And I'm at the county line in Hanover, and Hanover just went through a year or so ago and put all new, every single road that goes into the county. And they're bright and they're white and they're huge, and I'm amazed that that sign has stayed intact and in one piece on a backcountry road. So.
And that is something, obviously, to think about too, because, as far as the placement, if these get hit, it is our responsibility to put these back
For
up,
sure.
and it's something to factor in. It's always we're looking at cost on these.
Do you know if the Hanover ones are in the right of way or outside the right of way?
I don't, but I can definitely find out.
They give the illusion to me that they all are all in the right of way. They're right on the ditch side, so.
Ms. King, maybe what we can do to expedite information for you is look at these 6 areas in
Yeah.
particular. I take it we've covered this area well enough
Yes.
with our input. Good. Let's go ahead and make sure we look at all 6 areas and get some feedback on that, since we're pretty much all here.
So, hopefully you can see this pretty well. This is between Orange and Louisa County line up until that fork at 15 and 33. So the good news here is, that is right up on the county line. So it kind of alleviates that issue as far as the distance.
That is up, I didn't realize it was up in Gordonsville, or up in, up 15 that far, yeah.
So I guess the question too would be, if we kind of go down this train of thought of, if it doesn't say welcome to Louisa, it is giving that impression, but we're not, we changed the text. Do we still want to get as close to the county line on all of these, or potentially if this one in particular, obviously, but I'm just wondering, because, we obviously need to look at safety considerations as well, and where people slow and stop, and just what makes the most sense. So,
Well, that may be a good place for a gateway sign. Simply put, welcome to Louisa. Who's that area?
Green Springs.
Ms. Green? So, what's your peak of interest there? I can't think of anything after a lifetime of there. There's nothing that really stands out to me that you would.
I mean, it's leading to farms.
Yeah, sure.
You know, if you're gonna put the bird on the Lake Anna and put Angus on top of Green Springs.
Some kind of little image, yeah.
I really think it's a great idea to keep them very personal to the communities. It makes a lot of sense to me.
It's that-
Cost effective, it's
And
probably
timber, I
not.
mean, that's the other thing.
Yeah, fields and
Through
timber,
there.
something like that, or,
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Quarles?
And this is my next point. I think that where the bird is attractive for Lake Anna, now everybody's gonna put their own different thing on it. Well, Green Springs might do something along the historical kind of thing. And then somebody else does something different, and I think uniformity probably might be the better answer here. Because when you look at it, you're gonna be looking at expense. This one, we need this, and this one needs to be this big. That stork is 6 foot. This one needs to be this. I think we should be more uniform and maybe deal more away from the monument phase of it and deal more with the gateway phase of it and have a uniform entry to the county on different levels.
Mr. Chairman, we were talking with a developer who has a proposal in the works. We haven't talked in 6 months now. But they talked about a gateway sign as being part of that project.
What do you think?
Right where Klockner Road comes off of
We
15.
raise taxes every year. Is this something we need?
So that was part of their
We're
proffer
getting to
was
Louisa.
to use a gateway sign.
Yeah. Well, that's
But you
a,
definitely want to do it before the two roads, depending which way you're coming. If you're traveling north before they
Actually, so-
connect, or south before they branch,
yeah,
to get the maximum impact in that purple stretch.
yeah.
But almost where her finger is on the map is where the developer was looking at putting.
It's a good spot right there. So, you know, get you far enough away from the flea market.
I think it should be.
So I can move on to the next one?
Yes.
Perfect. All right, so we looked at New Bridge.
Function. And then
So now this is a large stretch here. This is between 64 and Main Street.
they just put up a sign there.
And this is another one where the road, the traffic really, heads the other direction. So this is over a mile from the county line.
Right.
If you're heading, obviously towards Louisa, like into Louisa. And this is the Patrick Henry District. If we want to have a conversation about any kind of imagery, or if we want to talk more about just keeping it uniform.
My point is,
You're the man of the hour, Mr. Quarles. Go
my
ahead.
point is exactly the same. I mean, I know that the traffic is increased, but I think we need to stay more, my feeling is that we need to stay toward the county lines. Because it gets so convoluted when you're several miles out. You're like, wait a minute, what's going on? Does Louisa start here? Or does it start way, So I think that, yes, we want to preserve these looks going into the county. We also have to be respectful of where the county starts and where it doesn't. When you've been in the county for 3 minutes, and then all of a sudden you see, welcome to Louisa. Okay, what about the rest of that? So that's my point.
Yeah,
Mr. Barlow.
talking about the county line, and I think in a lot of these situations, it's gonna apply exactly what, Mr. Quarles is saying. In our particular, Gordon's in my district, which runs right parallel to 64. Virtually all of if you put it at the county line, you're gonna miss all of the traffic that comes off 64. Because in our particular instance, I think if you're gonna have a sign that people see, it's gonna have to be on the north side of 64. Or at the Gum Springs exit. See, Haydensville and Shannon Hill, both of those exits are actually in Goochland, so if you put those at the county line, then you're okay. But at Ferncliff and 522, if you put them at the county line, then all of the traffic that's coming off of 64, which is the predominance of traffic, is not going to see the sign. So in that instance, it's a little bit different, because when you get, it's just a situation.
I understand.
Design
Mr. Dickerson.
Crossroads is the same way.
Yep.
That's our big gateway, is people coming off of 64 that don't know Louisa County.
Mr. Quarles.
I don't remember, but I think there was at some point signage that says, it talks about Louisa County and talks about a good county to live, work, blah, blah. I've seen that
It
sign
used to be on 64.
off of 64.
Yeah, certified
I mean,
business
I
location.
never knew
certified
what that
business
was, but
community.
it was a certified business.
So I'm thinking
What that
that
meant.
those might, I just have a hard time when we're working on the gateways, putting a sign that's not at the gateway. That's just difficult to me because I'm thinking, okay, not only are you confusing the people of the where the county actually starts, which is not the greatest issue, but it's not where the county starts. And I think when you're talking about a gateway, you're talking about, this is the gateway, this is where we're coming to. And I know that there's a lot of people that are gonna miss it because they're on the highway. But I think that signage that, maybe those signs that said a good community to work, live, breathe, or whatever, and probably alleviate some of that. And I think maybe in another theme, maybe we should put those monument signs there on those spots as opposed to, but I do think there should be some other than VDOT signage recognizing where where you're entering the county and when you're not. You know.
All right, I'm all right with that. Recognize both points. But,
Yeah.
so from the Patrick Henry representative, I guess we have the opinion here on this one, so that's good. Yep,
Come on, guys, don't leave me on.
no, you're good, you're good.
Okay, so another one that's not quite on the boundary. So this is a little over a mile again from the county line. This is 64 to Gardner's Road in Mountain Road District.
Might have been the one we was talking about.
That's one he was talking about, and when I first saw it, I had the same question in my mind. It's everybody coming into Goochland County in that area knows where Louisa is and where Goochland is. If we're trying to get visibility, we need to catch the traffic coming out of Richmond off of 64 coming to the lake is where the boom traffic is. So I guess what's the goal? Are we trying to let county citizens know where they are and what they're entering, or the vast amount of traffic coming into the county off of 64? What we're trying to accomplish.
So if I may, if it's helpful, this will be paid for with transit occupancy tax fund. So this is a tourism initiative. Not that the citizens shouldn't also benefit from this as well, but the idea is to create a sense of place for people that are visitors to the county. So these are people that aren't necessarily going to be familiar with, well, if I go this way, I'm going to go to Goochland, and this is new to them. So we want to establish you're in Louisa. This is a beautiful place.
Well, it's most eyeballs on it. I feel like it's also a goal to let them know where they are. I assume it's still a lot of people come in to Louisa County then out 64, not sure they're in Louisa County. And if we don't put something to recognize it there, we're probably missing eyeballs. So I'm not married to either one of these, but it's just concerns I have looking at it.
I'm honest, I see the concern of both of them and the benefit of both of them, so, Mr. Quarles.
Mr. Barlow, you have a lot of knowledge in this kind of area based on what you do. What about other counties, like say Henrico, or what does that look like? Do they have, and where are they in relation to their county lines? And I know that they've done signage down toward Short Pump, and I know that Henrico has signage somewhere there on Parham. I wonder, are they in the same similar situation? I'm calling on your professional.
Well, I'm thinking Goochland and Henrico has one right there on Broad Street. And that's in close proximity to where the county line is located. And I think it kind of gets to the situation because I mean, I agree with you. If, for instance, at Haydensville and Shannon Hill, if we put the sign, a gateway sign, in close proximity to the property line, I mean to the county line, then you're meeting both objectives, so to speak. But at Gum Springs and Ferncliff, the big portion of the traffic that's going to be getting off of, well, for instance, if you put it at the county line at Ferncliff, you're going to miss 250 and 64 because the county line is south of 250.
Yes.
So we're not really marking the county line because I think we messed that up about as good as you possibly could when we did the county line. It's more of a gateway type thing, and to me, it's like getting the most visibility that you can, and I don't think these signs, I mean, I understand what Mr. Quarles is saying. You know, you don't want to have it, you want it, if you can, in close proximity to the county line. But in the situations that I'm talking about, if you put it at the county line, then you've missed all of your gateway visibility. So I think the way I see it, you're going to have some flexibility and not just say we're going to stick them on the county line. It's where you're going to get the most bang for your buck, so to speak. And the objective, at least the way I see what you're trying to do, is put these signs in a place that will, from a tourism standpoint, is going to give it the most visibility. And so I don't think necessarily sticking to the county line is going to accomplish what it is you're talking about doing. Yeah, the way I look at it.
Okay.
So we settled on Gum Spring, more or less?
Like you said, I guess it's a gateway or a county line, which one we're trying to address at any given interchange we have.
So we already spoke about where's Crossroad to Spotsylvania and,
Right.
how those points come together. So finally, let's talk about Hanover Line to Willowbrook Road and the Jackson District.
On 33, that.
This is 33 here, and then this red line, if you can see it, is the county line.
That's something that isn't easy. As the chairman says, very easy one. And again, this is challenging to do, and I think a lot of it in my mind is revenue driven. How do you pay for it? What is the funding allotment for the signage? And I agree with Mr. Quarles. It's simply put, a small, more affordable signage at the county line just makes sense. You are in Louisa, welcome to Louisa. And then to move forward past that to the more appealing places, as Mr. Palmer said, to more bang for your buck, you would transition to a monument-style sign. Where that one right there on 33 in the county would be a combined monument-style. I don't know where you would position one in that area. That makes it like a focal point, like Zion's Crossroads or the lake, or territory specific, I guess. Green Springs.
a point of clarification, that's not my district, but the county line that is shown on there is the old county line.
Oh, is it really? I don't know. Okay.
The county line as presently configured comes up Hopeful Church Road,
Okay.
hits 33, and then goes left to Jones Farm Road, I believe it is, and then takes off cross country again. But it's got that offset in it, and so there, I would think, there's a place you could stick it on the county line, but you got a 600 and some foot distance jag there. So really, if you put it there in close proximity to Jones Farm Road, then you would have the county line addressed. And I don't think either place you put it is really going to matter as far as traffic on 33 coming into Louisa County.
Might make a difference to people pulling out of Jones Farm Road, being able to see down 33.
Well,
but-
yeah, I think you're going to have to take in sight distance on wherever you put it. But all of those things, you might could get in that open field a place to put something that you could see it. But in a situation like this, I think you could adhere to the county line. And it's not going to make any difference. I think really the only ones that are going to make a difference are when you're missing a lot of traffic by putting it right on the county line.
And 64 did that to us, so.
Right.
The county line, so those would be the few entrances we have to look at, there's 2 or 3. Mr.
Mr.
Claus?
Chairman, looking at this and listening to Mr. Barlow's commentary, and you mentioned putting it in a field, so the county would have to buy that, or is that in the 55-foot right-of-way?
Get an easement, whatever, but, I mean, most of these things, unless, well, for instance, the 33 right through that section has a 30-foot prescriptive easement. In other words, the county, you don't even have 25 feet. So if you put a sign there, you're probably going to have an easement for the sign anyway. So it's whether you can get it further back. Your sight distance is measured 25 feet from the middle of the closest lane that you got to be safe from. So when you put signs, as long as you back beyond that sight distance line, you're okay, but you'll probably have to have an easement for wherever you put it, unless you can get it in VDOT's right away, and they're not going to want that in the beginning.
So some farmer's really gonna like the fact that there's a sign there that he's gotta drill around.
Well, he may not like that either, and he may
Yep.
not grant the easement. I'm saying all of these things are going to have to be, once you decide on something, you're going to have to negotiate the easements and whatever you like that. I mean, they'd have to approve it. You can't just go out there and stick it up.
Would you all like to look at Green Springs one more time at Zion Crossroads? Because we kind of moved away from that without, I don't know that we got the final information
Sure.
from Ms. King.
So again,
Ms. King,
yes.
where was the proposed area that, I see these sightline from the county line, but where was the proposed,
So that's actually what we're hoping to get from you all, if you have any specific input on where you think signs should go on these road segments. That way, as we develop our implementation plan, we can have more defined information, and we can look into right-of-way issues and things like that. So right now, all we've identified is this long stretch of road. This road segment, we know has this average daily traffic. And we know it's as far from the county line if we go with this road segment. Otherwise, we can look at pushing it closer to the line. So that's why we just wanted to pick your brain and get more information from you on what you think.
I'm thinking if you're gonna go with, as Mr. Payne calls it, a monument type sign, then you're probably gonna have to put it in between the area of the interstate and this high populated area, which is probably adjacent from the Best Western, maybe right there as you're coming off of the westbound side of 64. If you're going for a monument type sign. And it's probably not a welcome to Louisa County, it's probably just a big one that says Louisa County. If you're trying to get maximum impact of visibility from people coming. But again, if you stick it there, unless the sign is enormous, you're probably going to miss the people coming up north on 15 because it will be off to the side because of the width of the area. And if you put it beyond that, then you miss Walmart, Sheetz, and all the high traffic area there. And if you put it farther back down on the other side, you miss the interstate people. So I don't know what the goal would be there.
Mr. Chairman, what's planned for the water tower? That seems to be something we haven't talked, and that's up high. You can see it when you pass through that area from many different directions.
So that's a great question. We are looking at putting that in our sign implementation plan. We are looking to get more accurate pricing on that right now. We have like very, very generalized pricing. So that may be what makes the most sense for this area.
Used to get that done for a bucket of paint on a Saturday night, but I don't know. That was a long time ago. But
And you'd be able to speak, better to this than I would, but he's talked, to vendors about the painting on the water tower, and just because it's so high up, that drives up the cost.
It's not my district, but just from coming off the interstate, driving in there, particularly with the Double Diamond and all the other business going on right there, it's not a sign I'm gonna really wanna see or really pick up on, particularly if you come from the west coming in and you're negotiating the Double Diamond. You're looking, if you're going anywhere right there, you're looking for Walmart and Sheetz and Lowe's and a place to eat and all that stuff. So
Whether you're on the right side.
you're gonna be hard pressed to see it, I think, or really get an impact. I kind of wonder if the idea is to say you're coming into Louisa County and not Mr. Quarles, not to define the county line, but to make the, you're coming into Louisa County. I almost wonder if you shouldn't go beyond Lowe's. If you go ahead and drag that image up a little bit so we can see beyond it, and you get a little bit more. Keep coming. Yeah, get up there, maybe just beyond the Dollar Tree to where things settle down a little bit, and then you get a sign that people can see the sign, and it's like, I don't know, you would probably see it then, and if you were just getting off the interstate to get gas, you may not care that the sign was there to begin with. I don't know, if this is for tourism, for people to come in, that may, for what it's worth, that may make a better location. But again, it's not my district, so I don't want to impose any thoughts too much. It just occurred to me.
One other comment. I listened to a presentation by Andy Wade this morning about a lot of things going on in Louisa, and he mentioned the airport and all the traffic that's at the airport, and that seems like a really big gateway to the county. And if we're going to look at gateways where people are coming in, don't limit ourselves to roads. Think about people coming in by the air. We're getting ready to expand it because of the use. We ought to have some gateway signage there at the airport to let those folks know they're in Louisa
That's a
County.
good idea.
And we know what goes on top of that sign, don't we?
Yeah.
Airplane.
Airport.
Well, it could be on top of a building, so they see it as they're coming in. It doesn't have to be on the ground.
You can
Oh, yeah, yeah,
paint that right on the terminal building.
that's right, yeah. On the hangar, yeah.
And you see that in lots of other communities when you enter from the air. So I don't think it's something we should overlook as we're doing these things.
Doesn't Fluvanna have a gateway sign on 15?
I don't know if they have a gateway sign. Oh, well, I know that they
Welcome
do.
to Fluvanna County.
Right.
something
They have
like
a really nice water tower painting. And then they do have, the one I've seen, it's kind of off in the tree line a little bit. I don't know if that's what you're thinking.
No, I'm thinking they had one right on the west side of
think it is
15.
15.
Okay.
Yeah,
Welcome to Fluvanna.
they do.
I think it is.
Right at the Starlight
Other
Business
side of
Park.
that
Going south.
sign, welcome to
Starlight
Louisa.
Going south
Yeah.
on 15,
The
right?
bowling alley was.
One last thing I'd like to throw out at you all, just to get your opinion on, as we're talking about kind of a distinction between gateway on the county line versus a different type of sign a little bit further out. We do have the event and wayfinding sign idea, where we could have, county events coming up. And again, if the goal is tourism there, then that makes sense. So if there's a place where traffic is slowing as you're approaching, or to your point about, where you can actually have attention on a sign, maybe instead of doing what we're technically, we designed as gateway signs initially, maybe we do an event sign instead. Because it still serves for the branding purpose.
Maintenance.
Yeah.
I'll put that out there. Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Quarles?
my concern with those posting signs is the maintenance and then the accuracy of the follow-up. Because you post these events, and we have the responsibility to go out there and make them current. And then also we have the responsibility to, mainly to make it current and then to the maintenance of that signage area. So that's where, I think that when we put these signs up, we're already incurring the landscaping maintenance and the upkeep of the sign area itself. But then to have somebody run out there and say, well, we got an apple picking contest, July 4th, I don't think that's probably, I think that adds more responsibility and problems to an already, I don't know what staff would take care of that, but staff's got enough stuff to do.
So, if I may, Mr. Chair. So that is something that we did consider as part of this plan. The lifespan of these signs is 7 to 15 years. With the color palette, again, this is off the current designs, but if we stay with a cool color palette, they should last on the longer side. Typically, it's like the red colors or the brighter colors that'll fade. They do need maintenance periodically with soap and water. As far as the panels themselves, that's something that we've worked into the agreement that we have with the sign company, that they would come out and change the panels. And it is something that we would have to plan for, so we're not doing it all the time, because it needs to make sense.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Quarles?
So what you're saying is the sign company is going to be responsible for updating the Louisa events?
Right, because they would print the panels, and when they would come out, they would just install the panel. It's a possibility. We don't have to do it that way, but it's part of the agreement where it's a line item where we could utilize that.
Yeah, I personally don't like that because that puts it in another party's hands, and if they don't do it, it makes us look bad. So, I don't know. Thank you.
Ms. King, was there anything else we could help you with this evening?
I think that's it, unless you have any more ideas that I should capture.
Anything else?
Thank you so much, I
Thank you.
appreciate it.
Yes. All right. So we'd like to cycle back to item 1 on the agenda tonight. Mr. Kuhn, could you give us an update on controlled substances?
Good evening, Chairman, members of the Planning Commission. Yes, what's before you today is basically 3 options, different ways that we could try and regulate retail sales of controlled substance. And just wanted to see which option you all felt was appropriate, or at least get some questions that may help clarify, help make the decision, as well as certain items that we think are must-haves versus some things that we'd like to have, and, kind of go from there. The ultimate intent is we have the work session, figure out which option is best, what items we'd like to include, and then either staff can work up some options for you all to review, or, like I said, we might have to come back and have another one of these meetings to talk through to figure out which option works best.
Would you like to just kind of give us an overview of each option?
Sure. So one of the ones that we have is, the first option is, well, all of them would add retail sales of a controlled substance, which of course would define it as the legally authorized controlled substance. It's right there in the definition. But the reason why we're talking about this is because as of right now, it would be treated as any other retail store. And I think we all can agree that when we're talking about controlled substances and with everything going on in state legislation, if it ends up being marijuana becomes recreationally available for sale, that should be treated differently than somebody that's trying to sell T-shirts and jeans. So this is just something that we would be able to differentiate between controlled substances, pharmacies and otherwise, versus just a retail store like Dollar General. So then the options that we had was CUP with licensing requirement. This is something that we said, of course, we'd use the definition, and then we would allow it with the CUP in certain districts. That could be, C2 in industrial within the growth areas, or different examples that we could use there. And then we just have outlined the pros and cons of each as well. So with the CUP requiring the license requirements, it's the case-by-case basis as always for CUPs. The transparency and community input, because we notify all the adjacent property owners as well as adds to the paper. And then it also provides flexibility, because depending on the scenarios and the direct impact of that application, that's what you all would be able to weigh in on. And of course, the negatives is the business owners would have more hurdles to go through, as well as the administrative oversight for CUPs. But it's one of those, we've got several CUPs, and I don't think that would be an issue for our staff. The other item that we had, option 2, would be zoning restrictions and distance buffers. So for this, it would be something that, it would be by right in certain districts like the C2 or I1, like within or outside of a growth area. But then we also could establish certain buffers. So just an example is 1,000 feet from a child care center, public, private, or parochial schools, just because we've got a variety of them here in the county. And similar, it aligns with public safety goals. It's structured, managed the local growth, because we'd have designated areas where they'd be allowed by right. And if they wanted to go anywhere else, they'd have to get special exception, or we could just require a CUP in those other areas. And then the last item is operational standards and public safety compliance. So essentially, we would do something similar to the short-term rental ordinance, where we actually created an entire ordinance that had, 5 or 6 different items that had requirements for operational standards, public safety standards that they'd have to go through. It's good because then everybody knows what's going to be expected of them if they wanted to open one of these stores. But in some scenarios, you might have one item maybe heavy-handed for this scenario where the CUP could address it. So it's just kind of the delta of the first option, or converse, if you will, of the first option. So happy to answer any questions you guys have, but I'm ready to answer any questions.
Mr. Brooks.
The pharmacy in the language here, and vape shops, as I call them, I guess, seems to me they're grouped together where a vape shop seems different to me than a pharmacy does. I mean, we've got a pharmacist at the pharmacy. I'm not sure what we have at the vape shop. I don't understand, if you're going to get medical marijuana, do you do that at a drugstore or you do that at a vape shop? I don't think drugstores sell medical marijuana.
Depending on state regulations, that may be an opportunity in the future. So we don't know that answer. All we can tell you is that it is a controlled substance. So that's the issue, is differentiating between if it was medical use or if it was for something else. It's just controlled substance would be something that.
Most vape shops are the tobacco shops and such, and all that. It just looks odd to me, these two being in the same group, even though they're dispensing medication of some sort. And I guess I'm asking if the state defines that. To me, I don't think a drugstore should be in this group we're trying to regulate. Because
How would you differentiate?
I don't know. I'm asking the question.
And that's what we've tried to do, is we tried to get to the overarching definition. It just so happens that pharmacy would be included in that, is retail sale of controlled substances.
And there,
Because there are certain items that may not be controlled substance at the pharmacy, but they absolutely do have access to them. So that's why it's got to be included. If you had a pharmacy that didn't sell any or prescribe any narcotics or any controlled substance, this wouldn't be an issue. It's only for the ones that, so it's just based on the definition to make sure it's all encompassing. Pharmacy falls into
I can
it.
see where Walgreens or CVS may take issue with it if they came into the area. I mean, with all the hill down the road. Just something that kind of caught my eye. Trying to define which is which. That's all I got right now.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Dickey?
question for our county attorney. Are these clearly defined in the county so that we can regulate them? Or do we need to set up definitions for retail sales of controlled substances and controlled substances?
So there's no definition at all for
No,
this.
So
that's why we need to go through.
We're
the
trying to
options.
regulate something we don't know what it is.
Can you say that again?
So what are we trying to regulate if they're not defined?
So right now, if someone wanted to open a medical dispensary, it'd be treated as a retail store, and they could open anywhere that a retail store is by right. So what we're trying to do is define it so that they would be treated differently than a retail store. So, I mean, we know what we're trying to define. It's just, do we think, if you all believe that marijuana dispensary or any type of sale of controlled substance is the same as a retail shop, then we don't need to move forward with any of this.
Let me just ask a question over here to either Tom or Linda. And I know they're busy right now, but is Mr. Goodwin attempted to weigh in on this?
He is not able to hear, that's what we were checking, so
Oh.
he's not been able to hear. So Tom was gonna call.
Because it seemed unusual that we hadn't heard his voice, and I didn't want to miss anything here.
That's what we were just checking.
I'll have to say that as I read this, a couple of things struck me, and it depends entirely on what well, I would look at the definition in some way if it was possible. Well, the definition is what the definition is. To me, it seemed like it was some combination of option 1 and option 3. And my thought on it was that we should define what we would like to allow, or maybe not define, we should state what we would like to allow in the matrix table for the different areas. And if, I would think we would be interested in allowing a pharmacy, and we'd be interested in allowing a medical center, something that would be provide medical services with a pharmacy, so it's a little clearer. But if we did not want to have a vape shop or a hemp product shop or that kind of thing, either not include that in allowable uses for that, that particular zoning in the matrix table, or just state outright, these are not allowed in the county.
So then,
And-
if it
And
was,
I don't know if that's possible, but
and just where we came up with the definition and why we included it is, then if someone had a prescription for it and it was sold at the pharmacy, would it be by right then?
well, yeah, and it would be a pharmacy that would be administering it. Just like pharmacies administer all kinds of significant drugs. That's why they're controlled substances. So, I don't know what to say about that. I mean, if it was sold at a pharmacy, it probably isn't any different than, I mean, if you say we're gonna regulate this in the future, that's fine, but guess what? We've got 2 pharmacies here now. And if
Well,
they
that's in the
start-
town, that's not in the county.
All right, that's in the town, but, okay.
Got 2 pharmacies at Zion Crossroads.
Well, there you go. Got 2 pharmacies at Zion Crossroads. So, I mean, people can go and get that substance if it's available at a pharmacy legally to buy. But that's different from setting up a different kind of shop that
So,
may, and that's all I'm saying is, if that's what we're trying to accomplish, then to my way of thinking, what we should do is we should simply regulate that out. And any other kind of thing, like a pharmacy or whatever, if you really want to have a look at it, apply the CUP to that. And then we can look at those on an individual basis. But we don't have any pharmacies at the lake, do we?
I'm sure.
I don't know.
At the food line.
Food line, yeah. Right, there we go. There's another one.
Well, if they're already here, they're not gonna be affected by this.
Exactly my point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But also,
So the fact that it's a legal, or not illegal, the fact that it's a clearly defined pharmacy, another CVS coming in somewhere, wouldn't have any effect on, or impact on it.
correct, so it
But-
wouldn't have an adverse effect to those that are already here,
And
if we had this definition and changed.
Yeah, and if you had a definition that says you can't allow a vape shop or a hemp product shop or something like that, not allowed, specifically said, not allowed in any district in the
So-
matrix table, then you would solve the issue there.
So what is your recommendation?
That's my thought on the whole thing.
So we don't
is that
wanna,
you-
we don't wanna define this, we wanna change the definition to what?
No, you can, if that's, whose definition is this? Is this ours or is this a state definition?
This is staff's proposed definition.
Staff's proposed definition.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Quarles?
I think that you could probably do, and I don't know to the existing, whether if you taxed those items or taxed those businesses.
Have the authority to do that. Dillon Rules State.
Did we get Mr. Goodwin's input yet? Because I haven't heard him.
He can hear the conversation, and I believe we could hear him when he spoke.
George,
I haven't heard him speak yet. I mean, I've heard him, I haven't heard him present his opinion on it.
No.
Yeah. Mr. Goodwin, do you have anything you'd like to add in here or say here?
Can you hear me?
yes.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I joined in late on the conversation and I'm not really fully up to speed on what you're talking about. I can hear the word pharmacy every now and definition, but I'm not sure what that's about.
We're talking about item 1 under new business, retail sales of controlled substances. And the question is, what were the opinions of the Planning Commission on how to address the issue? There are 3 options given. And we've talked about what's in the definition so far, and we've talked about considering the different options a little bit, but interested in hearing your opinion on this.
Okay, Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I'm going to apologize. I just noticed that my working session minutes or the packet is last month's. And I read through it and I said, we've already dealt with all this, haven't we? The general meeting packet is correct. It is for February, but the packet that I picked up for the planning session or the work session is for January. So I'm not up to speed on this. I would be an ignorant commenter.
All right, well, thank you. All right, back to where we are. So I think my initial thought was that we either define what we are going to allow here or define what we're not going to allow here. So you can define instead of retail sale of controlled substances, you could define the things you don't want here, following as a definition. I'm just talking here, subject to being overruled by the attorney in what I think.
Well,
But you could define what you don't want, the following are the types of entities you don't want here, or, definition of whatever, vape shop, hemp product sales, whatever. Define that, or define the type of controlled substance retailer you don't want here, and then X those out in your matrix table. I don't know exactly what that would look like. It would take a little bit of time to work the exact words out.
Yeah, and we would also have to make sure that we are in compliance with the Virginia code too, because there are some code sections that address those issues too.
Yeah. Now, I don't know, maybe that's not the way to go about it. That's just what struck me at the time when I was reading through this. What about doing it that way?
Because if you're too specific in the state code changes to make it legally authorized or whatever, change it. If it's too narrow, then it's going to be a full swing and a miss.
Well, so the other possibility then is to define what you do want to have and say, retail sale of controlled substances, for lack of a better way to phrase it, for Louisa County includes the following, and specifically say the types of things you want to have.
And then you'd have to define, if you want a pharmacy, then we're going to have to define a pharmacy.
Maybe we do.
Which, if the primary use is selling medical prescriptions, it'd be a pharmacy. So then you'd end up being able to have the use anyway.
Mr. Quarles.
Maybe you want to appoint or solicit a committee to try to work through this to get better clarity on other localities and what they're doing. Just a suggestion.
What is the time frame that you are looking for information back to the board?
Well, as soon as possible. This is something that, of course, if state code were to be amended, I guess we either have July 1st or next July, but it's not necessarily something we would like to sit on.
I understand. So when you say as soon as possible, do you mean 1 week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, a month or two?
No, like I just said. So, if it's not going to go into effect this July 1, we've got till next July, effectively, but still it's something that we'd like to address sooner rather than later.
And the outcome is not necessarily the outcome is information from the Planning Commission or an official recommendation from the Planning Commission, or what specific?
So working through this, we'd have to either amend the zoning code or create a new ordinance section in the zoning code to then come for you all for a public hearing to then go to the board. So, we know at least it's going to be 3 to 4 months at least through Planning Commission.
Right.
So that's the reason I say as soon as possible, because, if the timeline's already 4 months And then with the new advertising schedule, that's at least a month and a half before we'd be able to make it to the board. So we're already talking almost 6 months out if we were to move forward on it pretty expedited.
Yeah, so I guess what you were looking for was something other than a few opinions tonight from the planning commission.
Yes, sir.
Okay, because that was not something I got from the packet material here. It was unclear exactly what you were looking for.
So
from the
consider
packet
the
material.
outlined options and determine which regulatory approach best aligns with the community public health, safety, and general welfare priorities. Planning commissions encouraged to ask any questions that'd be helpful to make a well-informed recommendation.
Yeah, so what that tells me is you're not really looking for much from us other than we'll make a few comments and we're done. So that's what I'm saying is and what I'm pointing out here is we keep getting things asked of us from the board that without a specific guidance on what you're looking for and what kind of product we can provide. Because it sounds like on the one hand, we have the conversation and you want a product from us that we can approve and take to the board. On the other hand, we just, what's written here is we want some comments and we're done. We're going to put something together and bring back to you. So I'm just trying to figure out what you all want. That's all. Each month we come here trying to figure out what do you all want.
So if we look at the agenda packet before the meeting and you have questions, please contact us.
I didn't have
And I
any
think-
questions because all you wanted was a couple of opinions, but that's different than what I'm hearing now. So I'm trying to figure it out. I mean, I had some opinions. I brought them. So I don't know. Am I missing something?
So what's your opinion?
I gave it to you earlier.
I've got that you want to change the definition
That
for
was
what
just
we
mine,
want.
though. I don't know about other people's opinions. They may have them too. So I'm just trying to get to something that, we have this problem often here with what we're trying to ask to do. And I'm just trying to get to a point where I understand what you all ask us to do each time. That's all. Mr. Payne, you had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Sir, if I may, if you could help educate me. Our main concern here is regarding the controlled substance, correct?
Correct.
From the state. So, and then I've read as you've prepared this with the three options. And I guess my greatest interest is in option one with the CUP because it involves public hearings. So it brings the public into the conversation.
Correct.
And it also, I guess, forces a community impact assessment. Are these the three, and I guess it involves the legalities of what you can and can't do. And it seems to me that, and the cons on this are the perception of additional hurdle for business owner and the oversight for the CUP applications. So it seems to me that why would we treat this any differently as we would any other business? I guess it's to my other commissioners here. Why would we treat this differently than we would any other business trying to open in a locality? Besides, and I see here where you would limit it to your zoning requirements, C1 or et cetera. Can you help me on that?
So, I mean, the three options we provided are really the only three ways that you can regulate something through the zoning.
Okay.
It's either by right, which option two, we'd be by right, and we would set these as where it would be by right, and everywhere else you wouldn't be able to do it. You can require a CUP, which you basically say in these zones, if you come to the locality, you can get a conditional use permit, and based on certain conditions to mitigate your impacts, this is where they can go. And then the third option is basically we create, it'd be option two, but it also would say these are full list of requirements that we would put on this specific use. And the reason why it would be differentiated is because this type of use is a higher impact to the community than just a normal retail store like a Dollar General or something like that.
Thank you very much. That makes a lot of sense. So it differentiates from being the typical vape shop that we see driving down the road with the colorful lights on the glass to actually that they're selling and dispensing the controlled substance.
Correct.
Yeah, okay. So I feel like as any form of leadership that we would definitely want to have a hand in controlling this and I guess my lack of knowledge, and I've leaned on the other chairman to assess, it kind of makes sense from, as you say it, that if it's C2, then you can have the C2, but still have more control on it. that makes sense as well.
And that's the opinion that we were looking to try and get is, do we want to go the CUP route where we have maybe more zoning designations it's appropriate, but they have to get a CUP, or we tighten it to less, so, you know, C2 in a growth area, industrial in a growth area, which is by right, but we have certain organizational standards that we require and have to do an ordinance. And that guidance, as well as, you know, some input if we think it should be 1,000 feet from a school, 1,500 feet, from, you know, these different types of facilities, then what staff would be able to do is work up basically an ordinance workup that we could then send for a more substantial review, you know, the definition, how it was done, changing things. But that's exactly what we're trying to get done.
Very good. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, I was just following on some of the conversation and questions you had. Were you suggesting that we limit it to a pharmacy, the controlled substances?
I was suggesting that if the county wishes to limit what comes in, we should define which of those things we would like to have here and which we would not, and just be done with it to begin with, rather than having to go through a process of CUP each time for each different item to determine, do we want to allow this or allow this with a lot of controls and a lot of different things. It seemed to me like we should be able to determine what types of entities we'd like to allow in the county. That was all.
Because I'm of the thought that if it's controlled substance, it should be distributed through a pharmacy. And that would limit this thing and nail it right on down. And to be quite honest,
Yeah.
I'm not interested in encouraging dope smoking in Louisa County, straight up.
Very good.
I agree.
Is that a feasibility to?
And so if you all look, I mean, even option one, so require adherence to state and federal licensing requirements. My wife is a nurse practitioner. She has a DEA license, which is a federal requirement. Solve that problem.
How does that solve the problem? I mean,
So even if the state legalized the sale of marijuana, they're not going to be able to get a DEA license from the federal government. Same reason why they can't put their money in the banks, things like that.
right. I guess I'm sort of naive here. When you go, if you want to go purchase whatever it is you use in vapes, do you go to a pharmacy for that? I mean, I know that they have medical marijuana, so a pharmacy would probably control that, I guess. I don't know that they even control that. But pharmacies, if you go to CVS, do you get vape material? Or can you get it?
Not that I've seen.
You can or you don't
You
know?
are asking a question I do not know the answer to.
Well, I'm asking the
Everybody
question
can't say anything.
because I don't know the question.
I can help you, Mr. Barlow. I would imagine that they do sell them. They're at every convenience store in the county. They're right on the counter by the registers. The vape pens that a lot of our youth seem to enjoy. So I would imagine that CVS and Walgreens and the other pharmacies would sell them, but it's not a controlled substance.
Well, I was getting ready to say that doesn't sound like to me that it's a controlled substance. It's at any store. That's the reason I was asking if there's something that says a pharmacy, is required to disperse that stuff, or it has to be sold through a pharmacy. So I'm a little bit like John. I think we need to decide the definition. First, figure out what we're trying to control, and then take it from there. But it doesn't sound like to me you're gonna figure it out tonight.
Well, I'm inclined to agree with Commissioner Kersey that if we define it as a pharmacy, what we want to do, then the only other thing I would say is because and I don't know if it would fit or not, but some type of medical center like, I don't know what you call them, the doc in a box places. They would have some kind of pharmacy inside of them, I'm sure. So you'd have to allow for that, or a hospital or whatever, that type of organization. But I would think that's what you would want to encourage. That wouldn't prevent people from getting vape products that are not controlled substances, but it would prevent the other types that, I'm not happy to see that come in the county. I'm really not. So if we were to define it that way, that would at least say what you could do. Barring that, if we can't make a definition like that, then, I mean, I'm inclined to go with option one and take a look at every single one of them and put whatever requirements we need to put on every single one of them that tries to come in. But that's only my opinion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Brooks?
it's, I kind of have a blend of items 1, 2, and 3, I guess we could go with. It just, I still can't get beyond the hurdle of the drugstore, pharmacy, whatever you want to call it, being grouped with a vape shop. If vape is, or medical marijuana, or whatever we're referring to in here, hemp products, if that's what the state is getting ready to legalize, then we need to determine if, what, and where we want to allow it. And I feel like a drugstore should be exempt from that and not regulated by what we're trying to protect. It's not the drugstore that is the issue.
I agree.
It's the product. So I think we can, in my mind's eye, we can come up with something, a mix of options 1 and 2. But I don't know how to get the definitions to include, exclude a pharmacy versus a vape shop.
I would think you would have one definition that would include the things you want to exclude, or, let me say it a different way. One definition that would include the things like the pharmacy, the medical center, the doc in the box, those kind of things that we don't want to put the extra controls on. And that definition goes in the matrix table in the places you want, and it's a by right use, and you're done. And then the other piece of it is the ones you do want to have some say over, and you, yeah, and either additional regulation only in certain matrix table part with CUP, or not allowed anywhere, and you're done.
What the majority wants, that's fine.
Yeah, and
It's certainly other folks that feel differently about all of these items. But that sounds like a good direction. What do you think of that, Mr. Coon?
That's fine, as long as the pharmacies don't decide to start selling it recreationally.
Well,
Charles,
we'll be back here doing this again.
Well, your definition of pharmacy, medical center, doc in a box, whatever, would exclude the sale of recreational use drugs, controlled substances.
Then we're right back to where we're at, defining controlled substances.
Hold on, George.
I would think controlled substances would be defined somewhere
Like
in
the
the
DEA.
state code. I don't know. Ms. Quarles.
I'm going to yield to Mr. Goodwin who's trying to come in.
Oh, very good. Thank you. Mr. Goodwin.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Having had all about 30 minutes to think about this and no time to research it, isn't there a state law that declares all schools to be drug-free zones? And they establish distances from these schools for those zones. It seems like what we want to do is keep distance between illicit drugs and young children. Can't we just piggyback or adopt somehow the state code on drug-free zones?
I'd have to look at the drug-free.
That's true.
My understanding is that it's an enhanced penalty for those who have possession in the school zones.
Sure.
So I don't know how that would be utilized to prevent people from having legally allowable storefronts on separate parcels. So I'd have to look into it, but I don't, it's a good idea, we can look into it, but I don't know just right offhand how viable that option would be.
Mr. Quarles?
If Mr. Goodwin is done.
Yeah, Mr. Goodwin, have you finished?
Yes, I have, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for letting me share.
Thank you, Mr. Quarles.
Mr. Chairman, pharmacies generally have a pharmacist that has got a degree. I think that when you're talking about the CVS and Walgreens, and they have a physician, if you will, that kind of is in charge of that. I think maybe there's some sort of control measure that goes along with that. You have doctors and pharmacists and things like that that are in control of these controlled items. With your vape shop and some of your other things, you have nothing that regulates that.
Mhm.
And I think maybe that's, I don't know how we massage that, but that might be our inroad there. Because obviously that would make it a little more difficult to do something like that unless you had something that was some state government or
Licensed
licensed
pharmacist on site.
pharmacist on site.
Yeah.
Is what the difference is between a drugstore and a vape shop. I agree, Mr. Quarles.
So if you look at option 1, the second bullet, require adherence to state and federal licensing requirements. So that was thought about it and addressed for option 1.
That's all I have.
Do we have any vape shops? Straight up and down vape shops up
Yes.
behind Crossroad?
Yes.
Right over here. Down from Romans.
Who you pointing at?
Which side of the road it's on?
Right down here, right
Oh,
down
now
here.
you want to get to Patrick Henry. Oh,
No, it's in Patrick Henry.
Okay.
It's in town, Louisa.
Shut one down over next to the lake off 208.
One got shut down somewhere. There was one across from Southern States, or Evergrove, whatever. Yeah.
And that's a vape shop, tobacco products, et cetera, kind of thing, I guess.
yeah, I think there's
I
some,
haven't been in
And,
there.
I think
and,
there's one in the town too as well.
There's one down from Romus.
Yeah.
and that's in a C use, I assume, a C1 or 2, the ones that we have,
Mm-hmm.
I'd have to check.
probably in a read.
I mean, I know that there's a couple out there, but I don't know the zoning off the top
Because
of my head.
most of them are in or close to a strip shopping center, more or less.
Where's that at?
Come on.
Where's that at?
All right, look. I don't know
Shopping
where,
center.
frequent Gordon. All right, well,
Some of my friends have said it.
have we given you some sufficient guidance?
You give me a lot of guidance.
Have we given you some useful guidance?
As of right now, I understand that some different definitions is what you guys would like, and a combination, option 1, 2, and 3.
Well, yeah, I mean,
Different people favor different items, so it sounds like we're just gonna have to do 3 different ones and pick the stuff that we like on some and throw away the stuff we don't like about others.
yeah.
I don't know how else we could do it.
I really think if we can define what we want and define what we don't want as two separate definitions, and then apply them to the matrix table, and we can at least make some headway.
I mean, if you have some ideas of specifically how to do that, I'd be happy to hear it. But just on face value, I don't even know where to begin.
Unfortunately,
With that, it would be
I've
legal.
given you all the ideas that I had, because I don't know the legalities of all these things.
And that's I mean, I can work with the county attorney to try and address some definitions that would fit that, but right off the top of my head, I don't know of any that would allow that. If it were that easy, I promise you that would be the definition that you all would be seeing before you today. Because I'm not in the habit of making things more difficult for myself, I promise.
It's, just out of curiosity, did this come out of staff, or did this come out of the board committee?
Well, this was not a board committee, but this is
staff
something
brought
that
it.
staff brought up after
Okay.
some discussions. It wasn't an official board work group, but with certain legislative changes coming up, or that are actually being discussed now, that this was a sentiment that they want us to start working on.
Right, okay.
And bring it to you all to kind of work through this process.
Yeah.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Quarles?
maybe you want to form a committee to work on it somewhere.
Well, I'm trying to make the best use of two things, which is our time and staff time
Understood.
in moving this thing forward. If someone on the, or two folks on the planning commission would like to participate in a committee to work with staff on this, I'm happy to entertain some thoughts on that.
Looking at you, Tom.
What's that?
They must be looking at you.
So I guess our opinion is really all that, in a meeting like this, is really all that anybody wants to produce for the county. So I guess we'll leave it at that then.
I can work up some options and send it to you all. And if anybody gets the urge to help, I'll be more than happy to schedule a meeting.
I'll be glad to talk to you about it. More than happy to.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Quarles?
if there is somebody that could be very helpful, I will work with it, but you know my schedule coming up,
I understand.
and it will be difficult, so I'd have to have a very strong partner with it. But I would help you with a committee if you need that.
Why don't you let Mr. Quarles and me know what you're coming up with, and we'll do what we can do.
Mr. Chair,
Mr. Goodwin?
Watching the beat.
Must be.
regarding my earlier comment while you all have been talking, I did go online. I think we should be looking at Virginia Code 18.2-255.2, prohibiting the sale or manufacture of drugs on or near certain properties, and there is a penalty associated. And if we don't align with that, I can envision us trying to enforce something that will get us sideways in the courthouse door.
Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. Very well. Any other comments on this item? Thank you, Mr. Coon.
Is there?
Ms. Buckler, can we move on to bylaws? And see if we can, we have a few minutes. We're going to pick up bylaws in the regular meeting, so if we can just get an overview on bylaws now in about 5 or 6 minutes, where we have left it before and where we can go, then we'll be in good shape, I think.
So at the January Planning Commission meeting, the commission requested staff to add the language that was in the board bylaws regarding workshops or work sessions to the Planning Commission bylaws in the most appropriate location. And in reviewing the Planning Commission bylaws and compared to the board bylaws, staff felt like the Planning Commission bylaws needed a little bit of reorganization. So what we did was separate the meetings into regular meetings, special meetings, and then workshops or work sessions. Included that language that was from the board bylaws, reorganized the regular meeting items that kind of mirrored the board bylaws in the order of the date of the meeting, the time of the meeting, the extension, and that sort of thing. We have the language that we had talked about previously about the approval by a majority of vote of members present for the minutes. We have the language which is on page 15 of your packet, page 7 of the bylaws, about the written correspondence being recognized. And then the only question that was still outstanding is the role of the town members or representatives and whether they can participate in closed sessions. And the same as, does that apply to the board liaison as well? And would we incorporate whatever recommendation from the county attorney or information from the county attorney as appropriate into those areas?
All right, and we have that in front of us. That last particular item on packet pages 10 and 11 is item 3 markup. So, and I see that was, item 2 of members was more or less broken up to, to lay that out. And I think that's a good way of understanding, seeing that laid out and understanding how that's supposed to be.
Right, and we did break out the town membership from the one long paragraph into different sections to make it more clear.
So I guess the last question is whether or not the planning commission feels like the town members should or should not be entitled to participate in closed or session or executive session. Is there a legal comment on that for us?
Yes, there's a section in the code, it's 2.2-3712, that talks about closed meetings. And there's really nothing in this section that says they're allowed in the meetings. However, there is language that you can allow even non-members if it's deemed necessary. So if it's a situation where you deem necessary, yes.
So if the language here said are not, but we deem necessary, then we could allow them in?
Yes, if you deem it necessary.
All right. Does that sound like the proper legal pathway to take for us?
Oops, repeat that.
Does that sound like the proper legal pathway for us to take?
If you deem it.
Yeah, I mean, to go with are not here and rely on that code section.
Well, we can.
So for item D that you're
Item D,
referring
yes.
to, town members are not entitled to participate in any closed or executive sessions unless deemed necessary. And would that be by the chairman or by a majority vote?
I would say it's by the majority vote.
By majority, okay.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Quarles,
Why are we adding that language? I mean, I think that, I've seen a lot of scenarios since I've done this. And I'm hard pressed, and maybe somebody else has an idea or a situation which would give us an example of why we would need, or an example of where it would be deemed necessary for the non-voting members to go into a closed session. We've had closed sessions before, and they've not been in that, and executive sessions, they've not been in that. What would change that? Give me a scenario of what would change that.
So I don't have a scenario of what would change it, and I would say that 99% of the time, there would not be a scenario that would change it. But on the odd chance that there's some pressing need to have that one particular representative in, for whatever reason, you've just locked them out unnecessarily. Because they're locked out regardless unless deemed necessary. So it's a very special case that you would call them in.
Mr. Chairman, this is not new language. This is the way we've been doing business.
This language has never existed in there. We've never had that statement. I've got the current bylaws right here if we need to review that. But that item D there is not currently in the bylaws. Yeah.
How were they not included before?
Well,
We went into a closed session last year.
yeah, and we said,
The
no,
issue came up.
you can't come in.
Okay, so that wasn't in the bylaws, we just closed the door on that?
Yes. And this clarifies it.
Okay. I don't know how that happened.
I know how it happened. I remember how it happened. We said, no, you can't come into this one. So I bring this up, I don't want to belabor it here, we will pick it up, and I hope vote to approve if everybody's happy with this. If there's any further discussion on this, we'll take it up in the regular meeting, in the discussion time, item 8. So.
Something real
Mr.
easy, just some
Brooks.
housekeeping. On page 15, paragraph 4, the 3 minute is written out, the 5 minutes is written out. If we could add parentheses and the number related to be consistent with the paragraph 2 above.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, so we'll take that up, and I hope we'll be able to wrap this up then, but we certainly should be able to wrap it up tonight. So we are out of time tonight. We had left proffer discussion and focus area plans. We're going to have to get to the focus area plans sooner or later. We're just going to have to. I don't know what next month looks like, but I hope we can get on with that. So I'm going to close the work session now. Work session is closed.
All right, I'm turning the mics on so I can test them. Yeah. Renee is dusting off her Secretary of Planning Commission skills tonight. We thank you very much. I'm just making sure the mics are working. There's like a 30-second delay between me turning them on and turning them off.
Did you want to use?
We probably control everything. That's okay. There we go. All right, I'm going to turn the mics back off.
Meeting of Louisa County Planning Commission to order. Ms. Johnson, could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Brooks?
Here.
Mr. Dickerson?
Here.
Mr. Disiswave?
Here.
Mr. Goodwin?
Here.
Mr. Quarles?
Here.
Mr. Painting?
Here.
Mr. Kersey?
Here.
Mr. Barlow?
Here.
Mr. Goodwin, could you please state your location and why you're not with us?
Yes, Mr. Chairman. I'm at my home. I'm recovering from surgery that I had last week, so I could not join you tonight. I appreciate being able to join by phone.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. All right, would you all please stand for the invocation led by Commissioner Dickerson, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance led by Commissioner Quarles.
Let us pray. Father God, thank you for bringing us together tonight. Give us the wisdom of King Solomon as we deliberate and look to make great decisions for Louisa County so we may perpetuate it and let it go forward. Bless us on our ride home tonight and help us all to arrive safely at our destination. In your most holy name we pray. Amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, we'll move on to approval of the agenda. You have the agenda before you. Do I have a motion to approve? Motion to approve and second. Any comments on the agenda as presented? Very well. Ms. Johnson, can we have a roll call on approval of the agenda?
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Dickerson?
Yes.
Mr. Disiswave?
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mr. Quarles?
Yes.
Mr. Painting?
Yes.
Mr. Kersey?
Yes.
Very well. The agenda is approved. Move on to approval of the Planning Commission meeting minutes from the January meeting found on packet pages 2 through 6. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes as presented?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments on the minutes? Very well, then, now that I've cleaned my glasses, Ms. Moyer, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Brooks?
Yeah.
Mr. Dickerson?
Yes.
Mr. Justiceway?
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mr. Quarles?
Yes.
Mr. Painting?
Yes.
And Mr. Kersey?
Yes.
Very well, the minutes are approved. Tonight, we do not have a consent agenda, so we move on to public address. Public address period is a time when any member of the public can come forward and address the Planning Commission on any item that is not a public hearing tonight. I'm going to open the public address period. Public address period is open. If any member of the public would like to come forward and address the Planning Commission on an item that is not a public hearing tonight, you'll have 3 minutes to do so, and if you let me know whether or not you are part of an organization, speaking as the organization. Would anyone like to come forward? Very well. Seeing none, we'll close the public address period. Public address period is closed. We'll move on to unfinished business. First item of unfinished business, CUP 2024-06 JWC Enterprises. Ms. Moyer.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Renee Moyer. Before you tonight is a request for the issuance of a conditional use permit for JWC Enterprises LLC to allow the operation of a construction yard. Mr. Cutright leases a portion of the property for his business On Demand Concrete. He uses a portion of the property to store gravel, sand, concrete trucks, a silo, a loader, and a water truck. He loads materials onto the concrete trucks, however, no concrete is mixed on site. The parcel is not located within a growth area and is designated as rural. However, there are multiple businesses within the area. On Demand Concrete is located on the same parcel as Haymaker Auto Repair and uses the same entrance with little additional business traffic. An analysis of the public facilities plan for the project from staff is provided on page 9 of staff packets, and the applicant has provided an analysis on staff packet pages 20 and 21. The applicant stated he has supplied concrete for school projects, county projects, and local businesses. He also purchases water from the Louisa County Water Authority. Staff conducted a site visit on October 27th, and pictures from the site visit are shown on the screen. Neighborhood meeting was held in the Louisa County Public Meeting Room on October 9th, 2024 at 4 p.m. at which no citizens attended. The Planning Commission voted on November 14th, 2024 to defer the application to give the applicant time to discuss and provide buffer details. Staff met with the applicant and Dominion Energy on site January 24th to discuss buffer options. The proposed buffer is shown on the screen. Staff and the district supervisor have also discussed adding a 4 to 5 tree vegetative buffer from the end of the proposed fence along Route 33 as shown on the proposed plan. If approved, staff recommends 6 conditions listed on packet page 11. This concludes staff's report.
Any questions for staff at this time? I would like to clarify that in the November meeting, we did, unless my memory has failed me completely, we did have the public hearing. So the public hearing is complete for that, and we just had the deferral for the question on the fencing.
Correct.
So with that in mind, I'll turn it over to commission members for question. No questions?
Mr. Chairman, if there are no questions, I'm prepared to offer a motion. I met with the applicant and staff out on site with Supervisor Woodward, and we reviewed it. I would move that we approve it with staff's recommendations.
Very well, we have a motion and a second to approve CUP 2024-06 with the staff recommendations found on packet page 11. Any further discussion? Mr. Eglin, can we have roll call, please?
Yes, Chairman. Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Dickerson?
Yes.
Mr. Disasway?
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mr. Quarles?
Yes.
Mr. Painting?
Yes.
Mr. Kersey?
Yes.
Very well. CUP 2024-06 is approved. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Martin.
Thank you.
We'll move on to public hearings at this time. First up is the capital improvements plan. Ms. Colvin, I didn't see you hiding back there.
I'm hiding behind the podium.
Yes, yes.
Good evening, Chairman and members of the commission. Tonight, we're here for the public hearing for the 26 Capital Improvement Plan. I put a copy of the summary in front of you, plus I believe there was one in your packet. There have been no changes to the recommended capital plan since we met in January. I ask that you adopt the plan as is or with any recommended changes you see fit, and then I will forward it to the board for them to consider during the budget process. I'm able to answer any questions you may have.
Any questions for Ms. Colvin at this time? Very well then, I'm going to open the public hearing on the capital improvement plan. Public hearing is open. Anyone who wishes to speak on the capital improvement plan can come forward. You'll have 3 minutes to speak. Please let me know if you are representing an organization. There's a 5-minute limit on that. Would anyone like to come forward and speak on the capital improvement plan? Very well. Then with nobody coming forward, we will close the public hearing. Public hearing is closed. And bring it back to the commission for any further comments. No comments, then the chair would be looking for a motion from the commission on the capital improvement plan.
Motion to recommend approval, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion to recommend approval. Do we have a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve capital improvement plan. Any further discussion?
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Kersey.
this is the second time that I've sit through this. I didn't participate last year, and I haven't this year. It seems that there's not a great deal of participation at this level, us as a planning commission. So much of this is decided by others and then sent to us for a hearing. I do have reservation in that every year now, our taxes continue to rise. The last number of years, 10% each year. We're talking about 30% over the last 3, and this has a factor in it. On that basis, I'm going to vote against this because I think it needs to be carved down, and some of the decisions had to be made otherwise than as presented. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kersey. I will say that I have been thinking about this as well, considering that it's a little unclear where not just the particulars that we see, but the budget as a whole, where it comes from and where it, what the basis is, and it doesn't, it's hard for me to see that it's not a previous year's baseline with new things added in. And I really don't know how to address that. I've had the same concern. It seems like there's not really going to be a change in that methodology. I don't know. And I don't know if it can be. But it does seem like we do spend more and more and more each year. And I know we provide a lot of services and they're expensive. And it's difficult to do that, but I do wonder sometimes if we need to provide all the services we provide. I'm just not sure personally how to, I mean, it comes to us with specific items highlighted, and we appreciate that, but just looking at the thing as a whole and trying to understand why the budget continues to grow, and why we have decided to continue to provide all the services we do. So I don't know. It bothers me some, because our taxes aren't going down, and I'm afraid with windfalls like Amazon coming in, the expenditures are just going to go on, and we'll continue to provide things that maybe we never thought we needed, but once they're provided, we need them, and we can't unprovide them. So I don't know. I know it's difficult to put that together, but it causes me difficulty in dealing with this every year too.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Brooks.
I questioned it years ago about the budget, because we're not holding the checkbook. So I don't know how to review something and make a recommendation on something when I don't have the checkbook in my hand.
I understand.
And I looked in, I forgot where I got this information from. I forgot if it's somebody on staff or in some bylaws or something, but it was more or less, it's your job to determine if it's needed, not your job to determine if you got money to pay for it. So ever since then, I've done just what you said, Mr. Kersey. I've looked at it and reviewed it, and if you've got questions, we can get them answered, but we don't control the checkbook. So that's why I've done what I've done ever since.
I have a comment.
Mr. Barlow.
I agree with Mr. Kersey. I voiced some questions myself, mainly due to the debt that we currently have. But I do think you may not hold the checkbook. Sometimes I don't think any of us are. But I think the review process should still not be, ignored. And certainly from my standpoint, if you have things that are called into question, expenditures that, I'm pretty clear on what I think are necessities and what I think are, wants. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but it's like a lot of things. What this one board member is looking for is, recommendations from you all as to what you think may be frivolous money is being spent, or, or suggestions as to where we should make cuts and that kind of thing. So it's like a lot of things that comes to you all. It's not sent with, for a rubber stamp. It's look at it, make your recommendations. I can't promise that they'll be adhered to, but I think most all of them, if it's not exactly what was sent from the PC, it was, your voices have been heard, and some of the things are changed a little bit. So I think if you just feel like that, you're correct. You're not stroking it. You're not stroking the check, but none of the seven of us are either, individually. But I still think, I know from my standpoint, I would appreciate looking at legitimate things that you think can be cut and that kind of thing, and decide. Some of these things are necessities, and as far as I'm concerned, our core functions, and I say it at every meeting, it's, the schools, fire and EMS, sheriff's department. Other things, maybe people want them, but they're not necessarily, especially if you have a budget deficit, they're not necessarily things that you have to do. And so I think the planning commission plays a highly important role in this stuff if you look at it and get some more eyes on it even if it's just questions. Do you really need this? Or can we put it out a year or something? So, you know, if you're, don't just, you know, say that, you know, you don't have control over it, but you do have control over your recommendations. I mean, that is absolute. Maybe the recommendation won't be adhered to, but you have control over the recommendation that you make. And so I would advise you all, or ask, that, you know, that's the way y'all look at it, and make your recommendations, and hopefully they'll do some good.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Quarles.
In response to Mr. Barlow's comment, we cram a lot of stuff into in a time period, which is we get it on one month, and then we're to look at it and go over it the next month, and generally we met with the different departments on the second month. And I think it's just too much to decipher, there needs to be more time. If we're gonna line through things, then it's gonna take more than just one presentation from the specific groups in one session. Because there are a lot of items here, and where they're added to every year, there needs to be more description as to why we're adding these increases. Because, I mean, there are core things, like you said, the EMS and the Sheriff's Department and the schools. The schools took one of the largest jumps. I mean, so, you know, we get some explanation, but there needs to be more time. I feel that we need to be able to jog this thing around and come up with better answers if you want more than just a rubber stamp.
Well, if I may, Ms. Colvin, I think, can attest to the fact that the majority of us, of course, we start working on budgets. You don't get out of one before you start looking at the other one. But as far as the presentation's been made, we don't get a whole lot more than you all do. We get the finance committee has looked at it and stuff like that, but then we get presented this stuff. And it doesn't hurt to ask questions. And don't feel like that it's no point in making a recommendation. If you got questions, then ask the question. It may change something, is my point. But as far as, you're right, it is a tremendous amount of stuff. And I can tell you, the finance committee certainly has more purview over it than they have really delved into it line by line to try and cut stuff. But when it comes to the full board, we're just kind of getting the same thing that you all get. So if it's, you know, if it's just sort of glazed over at the PC level, then, you know, that's a part that we maybe could have benefited from if it'd been a few more questions asked there. That's all I'm saying.
May I add?
Yes, Ms. Colvin.
I do want you to know I post this out on the web normally after I meet with you guys in December, so all the details are out there, but my door is always open. You can ask Mr. Barlow, you can call me, I will sit down with you, I will go through the entire budget. You could spend a day with me. Just let me know, and I do not mind. I hope you all know that. My door is always open.
And Ms. Colvin, certainly, nobody is at all
Oh, I didn't-
casting aspersions at any work that you all are doing. I mean, it is a huge job, and we appreciate the work
I
that
just
you all
want you to
put
know
in.
if you don't know where it's coming from, I will gladly walk through the whole process, every detail that I have, I will definitely share. Our department heads do the research on the amounts based on projects that we hear from our citizens that are, or things that we hear that we need. And that's how it started, but definitely if there's something you don't agree with, we can send that, take it out.
Thank you.
I
Ms.
got
Barley.
Another comment. Ms. Colvin, I don't know how you would get any better. And the stuff that she works, I put a lot of reliance because she's the one that's putting a lot of this stuff together. And I have never asked her a question that I even felt an inkling that I wasn't getting. She's going to give you the straight answer with no bias. She tells you what it is, and I guarantee if she doesn't know the answer the minute you ask her, she'll be calling you the next day and give you the answers. But I hope Ms. Colvin knows I can't think of anybody could be doing a better job. And she works hard at it, and most of the time I don't feel comfortable with the budget. I hate budget season. But I have far more reliance on her than anybody I've ever dealt with in that position. So she does a great job, and if you've got questions, I will guarantee you she will answer. So, it's just one of those things. I think the more eyes that look at it, the more questions that come up, the more likely you are to get something that is reasonable. But it's, granted you don't have the checkbook, but you are in control of your recommendations.
Mr. Quarles.
Maybe I might suggest that since we are challenged to look at this thing a little closer and scrutinize, maybe we need a couple more work sessions between the time that we get the information and the time we're supposed to disseminate the information, pass it along to the board. Maybe it's going to require a little more work by us so that we can share from each other. This makes sense, and maybe this doesn't make sense, and maybe we need to hear from this party again, to get clear definition about it. Maybe it's going to require some more work, not on this particular one, because I think we're past that window, but maybe in the future, maybe the PC needs to get together a couple times after we receive the information.
Well, certainly I would suggest, and we can look at doing that. That's not an issue. We certainly look at adding some in. I think there's a certain amount of individual effort needed as well to bring forward a lot of discussion too. So, yeah, that's something for us all to look at.
And I follow that also, but we can look at it individually.
Mhm.
But unless we bounce it back and forth off this one and
Agreed.
that one, then it's just one person's opinion, and they say, well, I'm not going to bring that up, or it's not mentioned. But if we do have a work session or something like that, separate from, then we can jog those things back and forth.
Sure.
So,
Sure.
thank you.
Yeah. All right. Any further discussion? And we have
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Goodwin.
I don't disagree with a thing that's been said tonight by my fellow commissioners. Certainly concerned about spending in the county, but most of you all know since my very earliest days on the planning commission, I asked the question, why are we reviewing this? And the answer that was given me was that we are to look at the county's needs as expressed in the budget to see if they are consistent with the comprehensive plan and the future vision for land use. That means, are we putting the right services out there in the right places to serve the people of the county? Whether we spend that much on what was not what we were reviewing. And that made sense to me because the Board of Supervisors are the ones that have to respond to the voters about how much money they're spending in any given year and what they're spending it on. We recommend or don't recommend based on, does this line up or do anything to disturb the long-term plan for the county? For that reason, and I may be in the minority and that's okay, but I am ready to vote in the affirmative tonight on this because I don't see anything in this plan that is inconsistent with the comprehensive plan or with the future vision of the county. Is it too much? Not my monkey, not my circus. Okay? That's somebody else's job. I just don't see it as inconsistent with what we've been planning all along. Thanks for letting me share.
Thank you, Mr. Goodwin. Any other discussion? Very well, Ms. Moyer, could we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Dickerson?
No.
Mr. Dissisway?
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mr. Quarles?
Yes.
Mr. Painting?
Yes.
Mr. Kersey?
No.
Very well, capital improvement plan passes, and we can move on to CUP 2024-09. Ms. Polychrome.
Tom, get the monitor. Right. Good evening, Chairman and members of the Planning Commission. My name is Kayla Polycrones, and I'm an Associate Planner with Louisa County Community Development. Before you tonight is a conditional use permit for an equipment sales and rental operation requested by Mr. Ernest Amos Jr., owner of Amos Equipment Repair LLC. The property is located on the south side of Jefferson Highway, Route 33 in the Jackson District, and is made up of 4.26 acres, which is zoned Commercial C2. Additionally, the applicant is requesting to amend 5 of the 13 existing proffers from when the property was rezoned in 1989. Amos Equipment Repair LLC offers a variety of agricultural and landscaping equipment for sale as well as maintenance and repair services. While the subject property is designated rural outside of a growth area, staff believes that this business would provide essential goods, services, and support to the surrounding area. The business would address the current challenge of diminishing support systems for agricultural supplies in the county, as stated in the 2040 comprehensive plan and is shown on the screen. The applicant's concept plan proposes business operations to be conducted inside the existing structure in the front of the property, as well as a proposed 8,000 square foot building towards the back of the property, as shown on the current slide. Staff has confirmed that the concept plan will meet section 86-230 yard regulations and the ordinance regarding vegetative buffers that was recently passed on January 21st, 2025. The applicant will be giving a presentation tonight going into further details of this concept plan. So in 1989, the parcel was rezoned from agricultural to general commercial for the purpose of establishing and operating a carpet store showroom. The owner at the time proffered 13 conditions that can be found on pages 53 and 54 of your packet. The applicant would like to update 5 of these proffers to better suit their business operation, starting with proffer number 7. The applicant is proposing the sole commercial entrance serving the property as referenced on the Virginia Department Transportation sketch dated May 23rd, 1989,
will be maintained and upgraded as required with any associated cost to be borne by the owner and applicant. Changes to this entrance will require site plan review and approval. Staff has confirmed on a recent site visit that there is only one commercial entrance. The applicant is proposing to amend proffer number 8 to be all exterior lighting will be directed to fall inwardly on the subject property and comply with dark sky standards. Every effort will be made to minimize adverse impacts to adjacent properties. Exact design and location of the lighting will be reviewed and approved during the site plan review process. This one's a bit lengthy, so bear with me. So the applicant would like to strike proffer number 9 and 10 and propose a consolidated proffer that reads as, no operations shall be conducted on the premises between the hours of 6 p.m. and 8 a.m. Monday through Saturday, and no operations shall occur on Sundays. Any maintenance and/or servicing of equipment shall occur within an enclosed building to minimize impact on adjacent properties in terms of noise, smoke, or dust. During hours of operation, noise levels shall not exceed 65 decibels as measured at the property lines. Noise levels was a concern brought up in the neighborhood meeting, and the applicant would like to show in good faith that they will be adhering to agriculturally zoned noise levels outlined in section 51-3 as opposed to the current C2 limits. Lastly, the applicant is proposing proffer number 11 be amended to, the property shall be landscaped and well maintained at all times. In no case shall lighting, landscape, signage, or similar features interfere with public safety issues such as sight lines or easements. Both the applicant and staff believe that the impact of this conditioned use would be minimal to Louisa County public facilities. Further detail on this can be found in your staff report. The neighborhood meeting held on January 8th only had one neighbor in attendance who expressed concern about noise and buffers, which have been addressed by proposed proffers presented tonight, and staff recommended condition number 5 in your report. This concludes my presentation. The applicant is present tonight, and I stand ready to answer any questions you may have for staff.
Are there any questions for Ms. Polly-Crones at this time? Very well, then I'm going to open the public hearing, and we'll move on that way. Public hearing is open. The first speaker in the public hearing is always the applicant. So we'll call for the applicant to come forward. You'll have 10 minutes to make your presentation.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission. My name is Ann Miller. I'm a planner with Balzer & Associates representing the applicant this evening. Mr. Amos is also here as the applicant if you have any direct questions for him as well. I do want to thank Ms. Polly-Crones for her presentation and all the work that she and other staff members have done to put this information before you this evening and have worked well with us throughout this process. So we are in agreement with staff's assessment of the project and believe they have done a great job outlining the proposal. So I'll try not to repeat too much of the information presented by staff, but I just wanted to touch on a few things. So as noted in the staff report, the property is located along Jefferson Highway and currently zoned C2. The property was originally zoned in 1989, as mentioned, and has been used for a couple commercial uses, including a carpet showroom showroom and a contractor's office and shop for an HVAC company. So Mr. Amos is proposing to move his existing business, Amos Equipment Repair LLC, to this property, which is why he is seeking this conditional use for equipment sales and rental. His business specializes in sales and rental of lawn, farm, and garden equipment, while providing incidental maintenance and servicing of such equipment. His business already provides services within Louisa County, and he is excited for the opportunity to build his own shop here and have lasting roots. So as you can see on the conceptual plan, the proposal includes developing a new building and associated parking in the rear of the property and leaving the existing building and parking along the road. So a general area for a drain field has been identified within the southeast corner of the property, and a gravel access drive from the front of the property would be provided to service the rear of the property. So all of the new construction would kind of be in the rear of the property with the existing structure remaining. So the applicant intends to use both the new building and existing building for his business. The proposal includes buffers with existing vegetation between the proposed building and parking area and the adjacent properties as noted on the plan. The applicant does agree with the recommended conditions presented by staff, which states that buffers will meet vegetative requirements as defined by Louisa County. There is a lot of existing vegetation out there which is set to remain as well and would be supplemented as needed. There were several proffer conditions that were approved with the rezoning case in 1989 when the property was zoned for commercial. The applicant will abide by those conditions as outlined by staff. And as mentioned by Kayla, that we've offered to amend a couple of those conditions to, we feel, better align with the proposed use and today's ordinance standards and policies. As you can see, the conditions address hours of operation, landscaping, lighting, and other site-related issues that would be also reviewed and approved during the site plan process by both county and state agencies. So we understand that staff is recommending other conditions as outlined in the report, and this applicant is in agreement with all of those conditions as well. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
All right, let's finish with the public hearing portion first, and then we can move on to that. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Would anyone else like to come forward and speak on this topic? Very well. We normally allow the applicant 5 minutes at the end of the public hearing time to comment on anything they've heard, but since nothing's been heard, unless there's anything in particular you'd like to add at this point.
No, I'll just wait for questions if you have any.
Very good. I'm going to close the public hearing then. Public hearing is closed, and it's back to the commission for discussion.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Brooks.
I have a question for staff, if I could. Ms. Polychrome, this is the revised proffers, I believe, on page 36, I guess it is. Number 11, no,
36 will have the revisions, yeah?
number 10.
Yes, sir.
Revised proffer. That says no operation shall be conducted on the premises between hours of 6 p.m. and 8 a.m. What if they're there doing paperwork, book work after hours? Do you consider that a violation? Seems, that worries me from the applicants.
So if they're doing like administrative work after the hours that they're proffering?
Mm-hmm. What in the future could somebody go down there and say, you're in operation after 6, or they're in there just taking care of business, meeting with future clients, taking care of the book work, paying bills, doing general business after working hours? Is that a problem with that bold statement of no operation?
We could certainly add language to clarify that so that that wouldn't become a question in the future, because while current staff may not look at that as a violation, future staff could look at that and say that it would be a violation, so we could certainly add some additional language, or I'll ask the applicant about, because that is one of the proffers. If they would clarify that administrative work could be done after hours, but no sales or repair.
You could just add the word external operations.
Yeah, I feel like something needs to be in there to
business
protect.
operations.
Pardon?
Maybe.
External, so the servicing, renting, none of that would occur, but inside, he's got to be checked.
We can work with the applicant on adjusting the wording of that.
Please do,
Okay.
and like Ms. Buckler says, for the future, to avoid some statement like that that can get twisted up down the road. Thank you.
No problem.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman,
Mr. Dickerson.
a question on a similar note. Under the Public Facilities Impact Review,
Yes.
page 33 of the packet, there were comments under fire and EMS about installing the knockbox, fire police keypad, also offering an amended proffer condition to update and properly maintain the existing commercial entrance to ensure adequate and safe property access, as well as fire and EMS, but that didn't seem to carry over to the proffers.
So you're saying, okay, yeah, so it would be part of the site plan review process for staff when we contact the other agencies. Fire and EMS, and Louisa County is one of those agencies, and that is something that they have to check a box on to sign off on for approval. As far as VDOT looking at the commercial entrance, that's something that the applicant would have to apply for a permit for with VDOT outside of the site plan approval. Right now, they're just giving concurrence letters or comments on the site plan review process.
But it states the applicant is offering to amend the proffer to update and properly maintain the existing commercial entrance and to ensure adequate and safe access to the property, especially for fire and EMS. So that sounds like a change to the proffer statement.
What does it say they add to it?
No, I didn't know that. Is that included in item 7?
Vice Chairman Dickerson, if you take a look at the revised proffer number 7, the last sentence states changes to the entrance will require site plan review and approval.
So it's covered there?
That's
All right.
where staff believe it is covered, and as Ms. Polly Crones mentioned earlier, that part of the major site plan review, this site plan will go to VDOT and Fire EMS for review and comment, or concurrence, depending on what agency we're looking at. And then, as Mrs. Polly Crones also mentioned, that after site plan approval, if the entrance is deemed by VDOT of needing a new entrance permit or a modified entrance permit, they'll have to apply for that separately.
All right, thanks for the clarification.
Any other questions or comments? Very well, then, Mr. Painting, the chair would be looking for a motion on this item.
Very well, Mr. Chairman, thank you. I'd like to make a motion to recommend approval of REZ 2024-08 to amended proffers of REZ-1989-06.
Second.
Motion and a second, and let me just clarify that that is going to have to be, yeah, there's going to be two motions on that, so we're going to start with that one. Very good. All right, any further comments on that? Then, Ms. Moyer, could we have roll call vote on the rezoning?
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Dickerson?
Yes.
Mr. Disisway?
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mr. Quarles?
Yes.
Mr. Painting?
Yes.
Mr. Kersey?
Yes.
All right, the rezoning 2024-08 passes, and we'd look for a motion on the CUP.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to make a motion to approve CUP 2024-09.
Second.
To approve with conditions and as recommended by staff.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve CUP 2024-09 with recommendations by staff. Any further discussion? Ms. Moyer, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Dickerson?
Yes.
Mr. Dissenslade?
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mr. Quarles?
Yes.
Mr. Painting?
Yes.
Mr. Kersey?
Yes.
Very well. CUP 2024-09 passes. Very good. All right, we can move on then to new business.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
In the world. I'm not currently aware of new business, but Ms. Buckler, if you have some new business for us,
No, sir.
Very good. Then we can move on to discussion item, Planning Commission bylaws. We discussed this earlier. Are we ready at this time to consider approving the bylaws, or do we have any further comment that anyone would like to make on the recommendations made? Mr. Dickerson?
Mr. Chairman, when we look at number 3D,
3D.
we're given a choice there. Town members are or town members are not.
What page?
Page 63. Sorry about that.
We'll just go ahead and use that one. I thought we'd marked it up on the other one, but we'll pick it back up here. So the question was, town members are or are not entitled to participate. We discussed making a change in that, making that are not entitled to participate and having words added at the end. Ms. Buckler, do you have those exact words?
I do, yes, sir.
Very good.
So the item D would read, town members are not entitled to participate in any closed or executive sessions unless deemed necessary by a majority vote of the Planning Commission.
All right. Any discussion on any of the changes proposed to the bylaws?
Mr. Chairman, Linda, you had a
Ms.
question
Smith?
regarding whether the board liaison could also attend closed
Right.
sessions, and that is covered under that same section.
Okay.
Mhm.
So if it is the desire of the Planning Commission, we could include another item, 4 or 5, or move 4 to 5 and create 4 that also says the same thing about the board liaison.
Would it not simply say town members or board liaison are not entitled, or town members and board liaison are not entitled unless deemed?
The board liaison is entitled.
It is entitled.
Yes.
I'm sorry, I misunderstood what you said.
I
I'm
did as
sorry.
well, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry.
It is entitled.
Okay.
Under the same code
Same
section.
code, okay.
Yes.
All right, so in that case, probably, item number 2, which discusses a Board of Supervisor member, a sentence saying that Board of Supervisor liaison is entitled to participate in a closed or executive session.
Yes, sir.
Yes, that would clarify that.
Very well. Any other discussion?
And Mrs. Buckler, you have the, adding the parentheses numbers for the 3 minutes and 10 and
Exactly.
5 minutes on page 67.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Very well. Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Mr. Quarles?
That last item regarding the Board of Supervisors liaison, has that been changed?
I think that would be clarified in here, clearly stated. It was never stated before.
Correct.
And as I understand from legal counsel, they are entitled to be there. So this would clarify, put in here a clear statement of that. So we're not making any changes.
Okay. All right, because I was going to say, I don't remember that. Okay. All right.
All right. Changes keep dribbling in, but we get there. Any further discussion? Very well, then the chair would entertain a motion to approve the bylaws as marked up in the packet, with the inclusion of the corrections for the town members, identifying they are not entitled unless deemed necessary by a majority vote of the Planning Commission. The addition of a statement similar under the Board of Supervisor liaison, saying that Board of Supervisor liaison is entitled to participate in a closed or executive session. And on item 9, public hearings, B4, the inclusion of bracketed 3 and 5 to go with the written out words 3 and 5, identifying time limits.
Yes, sir.
So moved. Second.
Moved and seconded. Do we have any further discussion?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Goodwin?
Just one question regarding closed session and participation of town members. Would there be instances where the general commission would not know the topic or the agenda, and only the chairman would know, and therefore the chairman just makes the decision whether it's necessary for them to be there? That's a question.
Let me hazard a guess at a method of doing this with the way it's worded so it doesn't get to be too entirely wordy. In that case, the Planning Commission could go into executive session, and help me if I have this down incorrectly. If we found out in executive session it would be desirable to have a town member attend, could we vote in executive session to request the attendance, and then someone could come out and get the town council member? And then that would, so I'm getting an affirmative from the attorney on that, and that would allow us to execute without making any further changes to the bylaws. It might be confusing.
You get an affirmative from me too, Mr. Chairman. I just was trying to cover that one instance should it ever come up.
Understood, and I think it can be handled that way, so that we would satisfy the requirement as written and still be able to bring someone in.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Very well, then, Mr. Eglin, could we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, Chairman. Mr. Brooks?
Yes.
Mr. Dickerson?
Yes.
Mr. Disaswell?
Yes.
Mr. Goodwin?
Yes.
Mr. Quarles?
Yes.
Mr. Painting?
Yes.
Mr. Kersey?
Yes.
Very well, the bylaws are approved. Good. Next up is reports. Ms. Buckler, do you have a report for us?
I do.
Very good.
So the first thing to report is that community development has moved back to the county office
All right.
building.
Hooray.
That is the most important report to make. Please feel free to come visit us in our newly renovated space. It is amazing. Lots of room. We do still have a few tubs to unpack, but we are getting settled in.
I'm sorry, did you say you have some hot tubs to move in?
Not quite. Just wanted to update you all on some applications that you all saw in December and January. The rezoning application for Mr. and Ms. Fuller at Ferncliff was approved by the board, and they did vote to refund their application fees. Bowood Barn for Mary Bland to amend the conditional use permit request was approved by the board. The Oaks Solar Project withdrew their application. The board adopted the Phase 2 amendments, and I'll get into Phase 3 in a little bit. The solar siting amendments are scheduled for Tuesday at the board public hearing, and Arcola Towers is scheduled for Tuesday's public hearing with the board. Staff is working on Phase 3 of the amendments, which has grown quite a bit, which is why you don't have a draft tonight, because we keep finding and adding a few things to it. So we are working on those, and as we get them, we're hoping to get them out to you all in advance of the package to give you more time to go through them and look at what's being proposed.
If that's going to be a growing and really large package, would it be beneficial to break it into a Phase 3 and Phase 4? Or I understand some of them are time sensitive, but just...
I'm not sure that of any of these that are really time sensitive. They're more just clarifying, getting
Yeah.
some regulations on the books that staff has felt for a while needed to be there,
Sure.
specifically regarding subdivision processes and that sort of thing. I'm not sure that breaking it up is really going to be any
Very good.
easier rather
Okay.
than just getting it out here and getting it done, which is why we want to try to get it to you in advance of the package, so you have more time to go through it. We have 2 applications that have met the February filing deadline, so they will go to neighborhood meeting in March. You will get them in April. And those are a rezoning to reopen the former rock quarry on Mount Pleasant Church Road, and a conditional use permit for equipment sales and rental at Trevilian's. And we have 2 projects we anticipate will meet the March filing deadline, which are some new improvements at an existing compressor station for a conditional use permit, and amendment to the broadband tower located at Jewett Elementary. So that is all of my report.
Very good, thank you. Any questions for Ms. Buckler?
Comments
Mr.
from
Brooks?
Mrs. Buckle. Nice to see the advertisement in the CV last week. I didn't know that had switched over, and
Yes, it has. That is something
Yeah.
else to report. We have switched from the Richmond Times
Yeah,
back
that
to the
was,
Central Virginian.
that was nice. Also, the application, I think that Kayla sent to us.
Yes, sir.
Thank you for that on the Amos
Yes, sir.
site. That came a couple weeks before we got up here, so that's,
And that is our plan moving forward, is
Okay.
to, once the application is deemed complete, or with the neighborhood meeting notice, which is about a month before you would actually get your package,
Right.
is to send you all the application in advance, so you have that information to start looking at.
great, great. And then one other thing, we all are consistently, not consistently, but we get zoning questions, so somebody's getting ready to do something, and I've just started forwarding it to Deborah of late. I don't know if, I don't know if all of us are doing the same thing, or if we need a system that we don't overload nobody, or
If you get an email to you individually,
not individual, it's the whole group.
so it's to the Planning Commission.
Planning
So
Commission.
Deborah and I are both on that email group, so we are getting those as well.
So we don't need to do nothing, y'all got it.
You don't need to, but if you want to just confirm that we did receive it, we're more than happy to confirm that with you.
One more email you gotta look at.
She gets one from me every time, so
Oh,
now
no,
that
not
she's,
him
now that
again.
she's on it, I'm
That's
good.
quite
I'm
all right.
backing out. Yeah,
All right, that's great, thank you.
That's
very
it.
good.
Anything else?
Nothing else?
Okay.
Very well, then the chair would entertain a motion.
Go move.
And a second, very good. And we are adjourned. Thank you.
Another fine job.
I don't know.
The meeting was shorter than the work session.
Yeah, it was. I'd
We
rather
covered everything in the work session.
I'd rather, but that's the way I like to do it, to tell you the truth, but, I'd really like to have a work session.
Maybe help me out.
Without
God.
Vanguard. So I think a lot of those
I'm looking, you're trying to make him act like he's a 20-year-old boy.
Almost just need a- That's the only thing they talk about.
To go with. And then I said, okay, but we need to have another meeting with the clinic. They said, we will have another meeting, but they want to go over process before they.
What's that date?
I'll send you the invite, so that you're aware of it. You're more welcome to join, but I think it'd probably be, it's up to you, because they just want to go over process and procedure, and like basic stuff. Then I think that, because, and also, Jim, with
I
Vanguard,
can lift. It's not lift. It's just, you pull, and it's all the strength.
Yeah.